when I first started making art, it was like, I'm doing it. Yeah, we doing this for the love. It's all about, it's all love. Like, yes, let's collab. Let's do whatever. And the older I've gotten and the more work I do, if you want to make better work, if you want to make stronger work, clearer work, more expansive work, not only do you need people, but you need money. Hey, how y'all doing? My name is Vie Boheme. I am the artistic and co-executive director of Bohemian Way. Welcome to the Wellcast. I am the co-director also of a short film called Center Play, which maybe you've seen it already. If you haven't, you should click the link and watch it. So today I'm going to be talking to you all about my experience taking Center Play from being a theatrical dance performance, a stage experience, and transforming it into a cinematic experience. So sit back, relax, catch this vibe. How did Center Play transition from a stage play to a short film? Well, that happened because of COVID. It happened because of COVID. Center Play came into existence in 2018 as more of a workshop, really. It was produced out to a good degree, but still needed a lot of work and evolution to become the best that it could be. It was going to be produced again at the Guthrie Theater in Minneapolis, Minnesota in 2020. But thanks to COVID, it was canceled, much like everything else was canceled in the world. And so I've been sitting with this question and asking myself about what was the space between, that cancellation and realizing that it needed to become something else. I had the pleasure and the honor of an opportunity to apply for the Jerome Hill Artist Fellowship in 2020. And, I was really fired up, and they had some really phenomenal questions on the application asking me about my vision and, what is it that I want to be creating? And so it became clear to me that the company that I started a couple years ago, Bohemian Way, what we do and what I want us to be doing more of is creating live and virtual experiences of multimodal performances. Multimodal performances are performances that include singing, dancing, acting, different modalities. So once COVID hit, the Jerome Hill Artist Fellowship released an application to apply for the fellowship program. And in that application, there were lots of questions about, my artistic practice and my vision for myself and, what's my barrier, from getting to where I am, from where I am to where I want to be. And I realized that Bohemian Way is going to be creating live and virtual experiences. I want to give people as many ways as possible to interact with the stories and the creations that can happen on the stage. We don't want that to be the end, right? That's really what came up for me during COVID, was that literally my way of sharing myself, sharing my creativity the rug was pulled from under me. And I had to cease completely. There were no stages to be on. There were no classes to go to teach yoga. And so that experience really shook me like it shook everybody else. And so I asked myself, okay, what kind of hybrid creations can be made to make sure that stories can still be told no matter what and reach more places and more people? So yeah, Center Play, the short film, is our first digital creation, our first virtual digital story. And stage, cinema, boom. How did you get the courage to attempt this project with no experience in making short films? I would say that I always have tons of courage most of the time. I would say my confidence and my courage has come from continuing to create more projects. Every project is bigger than the last project. I'm not really capable of making anything small, and I've been successful to date doing it on my own. So it became clear to me through the last time when Center Play was a workshop, it became clear that as I watched the footage back today, like it could have been so much better with help. Could have been written better with more advisement, with a director outside of myself, with, maybe not another choreographer, but a choreographic advisor, with a larger team, with more people. It can be better. That idea, that feeling, that thought, that understanding really kind of propelled me into this. And I was determined to find people. And this is also like just something that really matters to me. I want to work with people who are fucking excited and passionate about the thing that they do. I don't want to work with somebody who's like, yeah, man, I could do that and I could do that. I kind of do that a little bit. I want to work with people who, even if it's more than one thing, they're like, I love doing this thing. I absolutely love doing this thing. Oh my gosh, I love these things and I love doing them. Those are the people that I really want to work with, so that I say, all right, you love doing this thing. Well, I need this thing done. That's this thing as well. Can you do this thing you're absolutely passionate about with me on this project? So I really wanted Center Play to be a project where I got to collaborate with people who really loved the thing that they love to do. And so that also drove me to reach out to the people that I reached out to, and to just be soaring on faith and excitement and passion that folks would also bring their passion to match mine. So the next question, how did you manage to build a production team? Well, that's how. I started with my co-director. I started with Diego Wyatt, who is my co-executive director for Bohemian Way. I actually asked him to come on to really help with set design mostly. And he also helped me in a planning capacity behind the scenes as well. So he and I started having meetings in January of 2021. I had 2 different teams I attempted. The first team didn't work out. Things fell through. People had things going on with their lives and couldn't be a part of it. And so Diego has really been kind of beside me through all of these projects that we've been working on so far. Thus, he's my co-executive director now. But I knew that Diego had a lot of expertise in a range of areas, from marketing to design and production and stage management for live productions. I mean, he has a lot of expertise. And so I really let the stories of Center Play be, the curiousness that I brought to people's table. Are you interested in telling these stories about these peculiar stories about Black women, right? Like there's a couple of standard stories we get about Black women in TV and cinema. We're always really strong, we're really powerful, we know what's going on, ain't nobody gonna pull the wool over our eyes. Like we always have a certain temperament. And the more I looked at the women in my life, the women who raised me, the women who loved me, the women who taught me at church, they all had such a spectrum of their personalities. Not all of them carried themselves with a certain bravado. Some of them were very quiet women. Some of them were quiet but stern. Some were boisterous, some were funny, some were, there was always such a range of personalities that helped me become the woman that I am today. And I don't see enough variation. So that's really what inspired me to create some of the stories that we get to experience through Center Play. And so that is really what I led with in all of the meetings that I sat down with folks and said, hey, these are the stories that I'm really interested in telling. And not only do I want to tell these particular stories, but I want to tell those stories using singing, dancing, acting, monologues, and poetry. I mean, acting, obviously, monologues, and poetry, but weaving through them all. And so I have found that, that level of, of complexity of mixing things up is either really exciting to some people or really overwhelming and less interesting than something else. By bringing those things to the table, that really helped me weed out who was game and who was not game. How did you prepare to film Centerplay? Well, yes. So in February of 2021, I prepared with a lot of private coaching, one-to-one coaching. So I took private Pilates. I did ballet bar work with these are with coaches, with individual people. And I did CrossFit, and I did a lot of journaling. Yeah. So every week I did at least what I did private ballet and Pilates, and I did 2 CrossFit classes every week. So it was a really intense physical schedule. I was teaching dance at the same time too. So I was moving my body a lot. And all of those things really, each one of those things provided something different. CrossFit was really about pushing my body to an edge. I had been working on a couple of performance signatures of singing while standing on my head, and then also singing while balancing in high heels are 2 signatures I've been working on for a couple of years now. And so I was debating on utilizing both of those performance meetings in the film, which I only kind of landed on one ultimately when it all came down to it. But I really just was focused on building my body and my physical stamina for the filming. Because as the planning kind of went on, and I realized that I was going to be shooting essentially 4 short films, and yeah, it seemed like a small, simple gesture initially. Oh yeah, there'll be 2.5, 3 minutes each. That was the initial pitch. If you've seen the film, you know that it's longer than that. But yeah, just building up my physical stamina was a big priority for me. My mental and physical stamina is something that I worked through the Pilates, ballet, and the CrossFit. And then I did a lot of journaling. I was I had a pilot program I was running for Bohemian Way. One of our programs is called the Journal Vibe, and it's a live collective journal experience. So I was running that pilot program also around the same time. So I was doing a lot of personal self-reflection and self-excavation to also prepare myself emotionally for the work I would be doing on film. As people say, my work is really vulnerable. That's the feedback that I get a lot. It doesn't always initially feel vulnerable to me, primarily because I feel like whatever it is that I'm sharing, I know that every human being it feels what I'm talking about. Rather than feeling very vulnerable in those moments, I actually feel the most connected to everybody in a room because I'm sharing something I'm positive you felt, so that doesn't feel vulnerable to me in that. But anyway, I digress. Those are the things I did to prepare for the film, was preparing my body, my mental and physical stamina, and also having a healthy practice of self-excavation to prepare for the emotional experience of the work. What was it like playing 4 different women in 4 days? It was a lot. It was a lot. It was a lot because I've been writing these characters to ask a lot of questions about my own experience in the world, and also the experience that I feel that I'm perceiving of other Black women. So there's a lot swimming in me in all of those inquiries. So Pamela Cole is the first woman that we meet in Centerplay, and she is what we're focusing on, or what I was questioning in that, is the experience of Black women ascending to positions of power in order to create space for other people. So embodying this woman that is a woman that I know across many women in, the Twin Cities community, that I know in the, in the art realm, visual art, women who run organizations, women who run businesses, women who are creating space for other people, and also wondering about myself in that sense too, as I continue to grow my creative work, So going from that space, oh wait, we didn't shoot in order. I'm telling you the thing, like we shot it in order. We did not shoot it in order. We actually started in the reverse order. We started with the last scene first. So the last scene is really about the expansiveness of accepting all that you are, and you being okay sitting with you with all of those things, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So that's really where we started. So that's where we started on the first day. The second day, we got into Pamela Cole, where we got into that kind of like tricky space. The third day, we shot Graziella, which was about rage and expressing rage. And then on the fourth day, we shot Vega, which was about dreams, you know, kind of the bubbling experience when you start having a spiritual or dreamy experience that's kind of beyond your everyday tangible life. Like something's funny is going on here, but I don't know what it is, and I don't know who to talk to about it. I'm scared to tell people I'm having a spiritual experience. So I guess as I'm saying this out loud, what it makes me think of is all I can do when I do my work is be as fully present in whatever story I'm telling as I'm telling it. So I do everything I can to meet the moment and to just trust that moment and not be too preoccupied with the next moment, which may be why I like creating in vignettes. I'm really fascinated by like a single moment in a certain way. It was a lot. It was intense because that's a lot of energy to bring to life fully. And that's another thing I didn't really anticipate. It was just, like it was a one woman thing. There wasn't nobody else. there wasn't like, all right, V, take 10. We'll shoot this other thing while you do that. Like it was me the whole time on all 4 days I was on, it was a challenge. I love challenges. What was the hardest part of the 4-day experience? The hardest part, I would say the hardest part, there were a few. I feel like I had a breaking point at 2 each day. Okay, so the first day we shot Vichy, which was in the abstract. I'm wearing high heels and I'm dancing in this big white space. And I had already been dancing all day. I had already been dancing all week because I had produced the first Bohemian weight intensive training program for dancers, professional dancers, and I taught a lot of classes, and we did CrossFit and we did Pilates and we did yoga and we did all these things all week because, it made sense in my head because it was like, oh yeah, this is the schedule that I've been doing for myself already anyway. I need to do this intensive program to, for some reason in my mind, it made sense to do it right before the filming because it was like, oh, I'll just put the dancers on the same schedule I'm on. You know what I mean? It'll make a lot of sense to just carry the momentum into the filming over the weekend. Whatever. That's how I rationalize that to myself. Won't ever do that again. But yeah, on the first day, I was I was tired. And I was having problems with my feet, my ankles actually. And so I had a lot of swelling in one of my feet. So I had a hard time. I had a breaking point on that first day because I was having a hard time doing something that I had been planning and preparing for. And I had pushed my body maybe to an edge that was a little bit too far. The second day, we shot Pamela. I had a challenging point on that day because Pamela's scenes ended up being more extensive than we anticipated. Like we all knew what we were doing, but like the practical of what it was took way more than we anticipated. And so in that, from a producer and a co-directing standpoint, that pulled more on my mind than I anticipated. And I felt like I wasn't as clear from an acting standpoint. And that was tricky. Shout out to Breon Jones because Breon like swooped in and actually kind of helped pick up a little bit of that energy with me because I'm, Charles, my co-director, is very technical, and so he's really looking at the framing and all these other elements that I don't even know. That's not my lane. I'm always the creative side of things. And other times that I've worked with Charles, we kind of work in that way. Like he's the technical and I'm the creative. But because, like I said, that day required so much and needed my brain as a producer to look at the time and the resources, and as a, co-director to also pay attention to the frames and tell them which frames we wanted and when we wanted the camera to move, and when was it time to keep the camera stationary. I had less space for the creative part on that day. And Breon Jones came in and was just like, so how is Pamela feeling at this moment? Is Pamela upset right now? She seems kind of upset, but I don't know if that's what you're intending. Like, really asking me those like rich questions that really helped me continue to stay connected and focused on Pamela. Graciela, we shot the next day. Yeah, that day was really hard. It was really intense. There was so much equipment that needed to be utilized and loaded in. And, there were some things that weren't communicated clearly, or they were communicated, but we didn't stay on top of certain details about what we were trying to capture with Graciela, and that kind of all came to a head at different points throughout the day. We had to make some sacrifices with a lot of shots based on miscommunications that happened about what capacity different people had to do certain things. It was like so much going on. It was really hard to be present and focused as an artist in that instance. With all of those things that we dealt with, everybody was just getting tired. It was our third day shooting. And so Charles and I, finally, we even got to a point where we had an argument and a disagreement on set, and that was tricky for me, especially because I'm trying to articulate and express the challenges that I'm experiencing as a Black woman, expressing my rage, or even feeling like it's okay for me to connect to my rage or tap into it, feeling like I don't know what to do with this energy. There's never a right place or a right way to express it or a place to put it. And so while on set, we had some disagreements about how to tell that story, right? Charles was looking at it from a technical standpoint of like what he needed to capture in the frame. I was looking at it as the performer and as a co-director about the energy of the performance that we were trying to capture. So we were just at odds and butting heads about what was the most important thing to capture. And that was really frustrating, to feel like I wasn't being heard, like I wasn't being listened to, even though I was communicating clearly of at least I felt like I was communicating clearly of why what I was saying was necessary. Charles wanted me to run from a certain point, to another point to capture a particular shot. And I was like, well, it doesn't make sense for me to start running from here to here because I won't have enough momentum. I won't have enough energy. And I can tell you now, I'm not going to use that cut in post because I know right now as a performer and as a dancer, I won't have enough momentum. I need to start running from back here to give you the energy that I need to capture, that I need you to capture in this scene. So we went back and forth and he kept pushing, no, I need you to start from here. Nope, I need you to start from here. Can you just do it? And so I did it. And then he would look at the playback. Can you do it one more time? No, I don't want to do it again because I'm telling you right now, I'm not going to use that shot. I'm not going to use it. Can you just do it, V? Just do it yeah. I'm like, why am I not being listened to? So then finally I said, look, I'm going to do it again and I'm going to watch the playback. And if it don't look right, I ain't doing it again. So that was, it felt like this really trippy meta situation where I was like, wait, I feel like I'm angry. I feel like I'm not allowed to be angry. I feel like I'm frustrated and I can't express myself. But isn't that what I'm dancing about right now? Isn't that what this is about? How am I in this position as I'm creating it? Like, what? So like that was hard, it was really challenging to wear all those hats. My eyes were crossing between producer, co-director, artist, person, woman. So that was challenging. We handled it. We had a conversation. We talked it out. We hugged it out. We had another collective, production team meeting with the necessary folks before we continued on with filming on day 4. Which was a great thing. I'm glad we did. We diffused and communicated to understand, like, this is where I was coming from. This was my issue. This is what I'm needing in this. People hear me. It was not an easy thing to say, but I knew that I knew I wasn't going to be able to work and present my best work and be my best self without clearing the air about how I felt in that experience. And I'm thankful for my collaborators and my team members because they met me with open arms at that. And then finally on that last day, we shot Vega. We had like a 90-minute window to catch this sunset moment, and it was smooth like butter. And which was great, getting into Vega's world. Vega's a very disoriented person. She's kind of she's pretty introverted to herself. She doesn't really spend a lot of time with other people. So it was I would say the makeup for Vega helped me get into that headspace of whatever that was. She looks disheveled. She's been, when we meet Vega, she's been sleeping for 3 days, and so her hair is like look like she been sleeping for 3 days. She got bags under her eyes, like that really, our spirits were high, but that makeup really got me into that world for her. What was the most rewarding part of the production experience? I would say, yes, like seeing all these people more than rise to the occasion and watching everything just evolve into, the coolest, like unexpected dope shit, I think I talked to Charles about this, but I feel like there was a certain level of like spirits were high and energy was high on set every day. Everybody was pretty excited about what we had the capacity to do, but I definitely felt an overall sense of slight skepticism about like what's going to come out of it though. It was just like, yo, this is dope. Like, we're using anamorphic lenses on this joint, man. We got a steady cam. We got we look at these locations. Like, man, only anything amazing can come from these locations and these materials. But I definitely felt an overall, but to make what exactly? And like, I am okay with the unknown. I'm okay with the unknown. I'm okay with the unknown is especially so in creative spaces because it is in the unknown that the most powerful and unexpected and idiosyncratic, dope, cool shit comes out. It's always in the stuff that nobody could have planned. Like Charles made mention of like a happy accident was his, when you see Pamela in the beginning, it's like these doors open and the camera kind of comes through, it just happened because somebody was moving something across the camera while he was setting up, and he was like, yo, wait, you'll do that again. You know what I mean? And so like there's this like opening doors situation, and like that brings me so much joy and curiosity, just like if we overplan, then there's no room for the magic. Like we just need solid pillars. We need really clear pillars. We need feelings that we know we want to give life to. I was writing something the other day about like how my sadness tasted like soft bitterness with a little bit of like the salt of my tears, right? Using taste as a way to describe a feeling, much the same way I felt about what was possible in our hands using the cinematic to express the stories. Maybe that makes sense to you, but it makes so much sense to me of like how we can use a different medium to go at a feeling or a story. We know the story that goes from A to Z. We go the beginning, middle, and an end, and we can still have a beginning, a middle, and an end. But I really feel like this project helped me understand, especially even through like Pamela. I love revealing certain things not in the chronological order that you think you need them. I like sharing something really strong and then revealing the why later, or revealing the cost of the strong story later on. Love that. Okay. What has the editing experience been like? More of everything I just described to you. The editing experience, I'd say the most, like as a sidebar, one of the most unexpected aspects of this project has been realizing how many components actually there are to the project. There's like the idea, oh yeah, I'm gonna do a short film. It's like, all right, cool. We got pre-production. Great. All right, now it's production. All right, great. All right, now we got post-production. All right, great. Okay, now marketing. Oh, yes. Did nobody mention that? You know, like there was a pre-production budget, a production budget. Boom. Then I was like, okay, wait, we need a post-production budget. You know, like learning about those full components of creating a single project was like, those are the things I was missing, you know, and that's also why I'm still working on this project, because I don't want to present something incomplete again without the rest of the aspects. Anything that's going to be successful needs all of those legs: pre-production, production, post-production, marketing. Like, required. But when you're a creative like me who's always swimming and creating new things, you're not always carrying out all of the fullness of those edges of the project. So anyway, the editing experience. If you've seen the other two, we have another episode where I interview my co-director, Charles, and I have another episode where I interviewed the editor of Centerplay, my co-editor. And we talked about one of my biggest challenges has been translating, like, again, Centerplay already existed. So trying to translate partially what's in my mind, partially something that I know I've seen and I know I've created in a different context, and being challenged by trying to push it through another medium. That was a huge challenge, both in production but also in post-production, because there were just certain things that I saw in my mind and that I described in the treatment that ultimately, due to quite a few circumstances, it just wasn't possible. Like, we just didn't get it. Like, there were just certain things we just didn't capture for a range of reasons. So I felt really challenged in accepting that it needed to become what it needed to become, which is so funny because if you watch the interview with Charles, my co-director for Centerplay, that was a process he went through too. Is it, you know, I have to kind of let this become what it needs to become. I can't really plan it to happen exactly a certain way. And so that happened in the editing process too. When Mike first approached, if you watch the interview I did with him, when he first approached the edit, he really looked at it as a chronological story. And even though the treatment didn't describe it as a as a straight narrative, but yet it kind of still seemed like, oh, well, there's a monologue here, so there must be a a through line that is A plus B equals C. And so it was just a journey of continuing to crack open the context or the framing of what a story is, and how to tell it. And that was, that's the gesture I can use. It was a cracking open of the form and saying, hey, I know that it seems natural that we want to tell this story in this way, but we want to lean on sentiment. We want to lean on the editing as a mechanism to tap into a feeling more than we want to make the editing give us a cohesive beginning to end, which is still something that we want to strive for, but that's the complexity of it, right? How can you stutter the clip? How do we want to speed something up and then slow it down in order to really give the cinematic experience a movement quality, in addition to the visual beauty of it? How can we make those things work together? The editing process was, I would definitely approach it differently again. It was like a painting, I couldn't have anticipated that it would happen that way or need to, but it happened like a painting where we'd get something done on it, and then it'd have to sit, and then we'd have to come back to it and be like, all right, it needs something else, or it needs something more. Right now I'm just talking about the visual. We haven't even gotten to like sound or music and how all of that ultimately came together. What was the most challenging part of the editing experience? I think that times when Mike I think I felt challenged when sometimes it seemed like Mike and I did a project before called Curious Moonface, and it's a poem. It was from Emotion Poems, which was a film festival. And so that was like our first project really working together. And I am in love with that project because of the way, the sentiment, the way that he shot things and the way that he moved the camera work and the edit. I mean, the difference here is that he shot it and he edited it. He did not shoot center play, but it was that same sentiment, the poetic nature with which he approached the edit that I was looking for center play. It was really that project that helped me understand that this is the person who needs to edit center play. And so there came to be moments sometimes where it seemed like he almost forgot who he was in that process. I'm like, you know how to do this because you're the only one who can do this the way that can tap into the sentiment through the edit the way that I already know you can because we've already done it. So there would just be these moments where we would disagree about something. I'm like, you got it. It's in your instincts to meet me where I'm at, you know. What was the most rewarding part of the editing experience? The most rewarding part was really like the music. Some of the composers who worked on Center Play so far, Eric Mason composed the original live stage experience. And Sean Mason, who's no relation, is another piano player and composer who has been building out on Center Play, you know, to date. And he's been along with me on this journey of evolutions of Center Play. And I called him, I was like, yo, you know, I know we made this song already and we made it, you know, the song that Vega sings originally was, you know, piano and voice only. It was really almost in the style of musical theater. So when you see Center Play and you see Vega sing, Vega's, you know, in Detroit in 1998. And so I was like, yo, we need to redo this song and we need to make it sound like a 90s tune. He was like, all right, V, whatever, you know. So I had to, you know, re-record the vocals. I was, oh man, I need a drummer, man. We gotta at least have keys and drums. So I reached out to Josh Walker in DC, who's a drummer that I absolutely adore. And we had these Zoom sessions. Zoom studio sessions where he played out all these drum tracks for me and like created these live drum takes. You know, I brought in Boo Boo on Graciela to play some guitar. And Mike also, like, Mike edited this project and he also did sound scoring for it. Like, everybody was rocking multiple jobs on this project, and I love this team. I'm so thankful. Me on Vichy, you know, I used the instrumental from Mike has a song called Mother Nature. So I used that instrumental, but it still needed something else. And so I was like, let me, you know, I put poetry over it, and I was like, man, I need to sing a little bit. So I added some sections where I was singing, and I added a bunch of vocal harmonies, you know, just to continue to punctuate, you know, like all of that, like adding that sonic world to it, one of my favorite parts of the process. And again, like learning about my process and how it continues to fold over on itself. And I continue to add different parts of my creativity to it's a short film, but yet here I am making the music to it using harmonies and also, again, composing and bringing other musicians in to continue to make it what it needs to be. And so that all happened. I just want to be clear. We didn't start editing Center Play till like May. So it's not like this was like a 5 years later, you know. It's like May, June, July-ish, you know. What inspired me to create Pamela Cole's story? I was inspired to create Pamela's story because as I'm getting older and growing as an art maker, and, you know, when I first started making art, it was like, I'm doing it, we doing this for the love. It's all about, you know, it's all love. Like, yes, let's collab, let's do whatever. And the older I've gotten and the more work I do, you know, if you want to make better work, if you want to make stronger work, clearer work, more expansive work, not only do you need people, but you need money. Good quality people need to be compensated. I mean, all people need to be compensated. So don't hear me like I'm saying they don't. But the better talent, not only talent, but skills. Like when people have skills and talent, they are booked, they're busy. So if you, want their time or need their services, you have to compensate them, right? So in that, there's this just tricky thing of like, you can't just always ask people to do everything for the love. You can't always expect people to do for the love because people's lives change, right? When people get married, they got babies. So like what they can do for the love shifts in capacity to what they could do for the love 5 years ago, And so me personally just feeling challenged about like, how do I navigate, wanting and needing to make more money in order to make better work and make more work. How do I navigate that? And so that's where Pamela Cole also kind of came from, like looking at the Black women who have certain positions of power and their desire to want to create space for others and how that can become tricky, I think. What inspired you to create Vega Gray's story? I was inspired to create Vega's story based on my experiences of growing up and, between my really, really young elementary age years and like my time after college, having even through, being in church, having like deeply spiritual experiences. And in some cases at church where they're appropriate, but also not feeling comfortable to tell people that I was having those experiences and being afraid of just being fearful of, there's all this talk about like witchcraft and it being demonic and like, I don't think there's certain types of spiritual gifts that get talked about in church that are appropriate. And there's a whole lot of other spiritual gifts that people end up having that don't get talked about and are oftentimes just lumped in another area. So I wanted to kind of capture this moment of this woman's life where she's becoming aware of something beyond what she can perceive. And really, I wanted to highlight it happens, and I wanted to highlight that the fear that people feel is common. That's it. At least with this. So that's another thing to know is that like Centerplay is going back to the stage. So if you want to know more about what I have to say about those things, that's where you'll get it. What inspired you to create Graziella's story? I was inspired to Graziella's story. I have not shared with you unless you came to see Centerplay live already. But what we get in the Centerplay short film is the essence of what Graziella is wrestling with, and that is a deep-seated rage that she can't figure out how to express or when is it appropriate, even though she knows that she feels it and she has it. I can relate to that. I've had a lot of experiences where I feel so much, so deeply and so intensely, and there's no right place for it, and I need to talk about it. Like at the very least, let's talk about it. There's all these places where I can't express it, so like where can I? So I wanted to create something to embody and, distill those questions. What inspired you to create the Vichy story? Every day I do my best to accept every part of myself. Every day I do what I can to expand my heart around myself just a little bit more, because every day I learn something that I love about myself and I feel really proud and I feel like, man, I've really grown. This is awesome. And every other day I learn something and I'm like, that is fucking shitty. Oh my God. Is that really a part of who I am? Ew. Or like, man, I wish this wasn't a part of who I am, but it is because of how I've grown up or lessons that I've learned through my family or whatever have you. I learned these lessons and they are a part of who I am. So I wanted to distill and create a piece of art that I could continue to look at to remind myself all of that is a part of who I am. And I will always have moments where I feel like I've arrived and I know something about myself. And it's every time you get there, your shit starts all over again. It's like, child, I don't know nothing. I thought I knew who I was and and I do know who I am, but I'm always growing and evolving. And, so I wanted to create something to distill expanding my heart around accepting all of myself, even what I don't like, even the parts that don't feel good. I think a lot of times we try to suppress those things and pretend like those things aren't there until they rear their heads. But yeah. So those are all the questions I have for myself here today. Once again, if you haven't watched Centerplay, you should click the link. You should watch it and take a deep breath when you watch it and be present with each woman's story at every moment that you get a chance to. Know that Centerplay is going back to the stage. And so this short film is really just a taste of the essence of each of these women and what they are challenged by or what they're grappling with. But if you really want to know more, you gotta come to the show. So click the link. Watch the film, sign up on the email list, and stay in touch because we coming to a city near you. But even if we don't come to a city near you first, wherever we do it, buy you a plane ticket, come and see this show because you're going to want to. It's going to be great. All right. That's it. See y'all next time.